Hi, it's Lynn, your adulting coach. I've increased independence with autistic graduates and their families for the past 5 years. They frequently come to me exhausted, frustrated, defeated, and hopeless, knowing that they need to prepare their graduate to be on their own, and they also know who they want to be, but they're not sure how to get there. They're showing up in a different version of themselves that's not where they really want to be. They ask for help. And I suggest that this transition between child, school, externally defined, to being an adult, working, and internally defined is complex. And because of the nature of the autistic brain, will likely take longer than a brain that isn't autistic. Makes sense. So we start by sorting out a behavior, like what's going on, what's the trouble, describe the situation and what you're seeing. And then we follow the breadcrumbs, the behaviors and the thoughts, the words that are expressed, to try to figure out what the graduate wants and what their skills are, where the opportunity to level up exists. Parents, while they're doing this, notice their own triggers and opportunities for growth, because we're at the last trimester of our life. Our adults have just finished the first trimester of their life. So we're both at a juncture where we're defining who we want to be and how we want to show up. And it's all manifested in our family system. One impacts the other. The adults, the parents impact the graduates, and vice versa. And we need help sometimes sorting this out. We notice that below the surface of these behaviors is our own internal world, that inner voice that talks to us more than any other voice for the rest of our life. We're in a dialogue, believing or not believing or arguing with our internal voice regularly. And we were brought up with the assumption of behaviorism. If we see this behavior, then these consequences need to be implemented. I suggest that, especially because we have autistic kids, autistic graduates, that we need to switch from that to a relationship approach that places the emphasis on connection. Because the behaviorist approach, as we've seen over and over again, can create that protection mode, can inspire that, and then when they're in protection, they're hidden, they're either melting down or they're shutting down, and they're escaping and avoiding all that conflict on screens often, or some other form of immediate pleasure. Now this relationship approach, the connection approach, does not suggest that they can do whatever they want. It includes firm boundaries, parental authority, and resilient leadership from us as the people who are in charge of our families, so that we feel better both on the outside and on the inside. All of us, we're in that connection mode that helps us create a better future together. We need to understand that mind-body connection to improve behaviors, both theirs and our own, and relate better. Because so often we've been instructed to go to our mind and figure out the problem, think it through, and ignore or reject or push away whatever's going on inside of us. Consequences of that approach are a lot of tension, and that tension has its impact on our nervous system, which can create all kinds of dis-ease And that's not what we want. We want to be in connection and ease, so that we have the energy we want to create what we want to create in our lives. So let's start at the beginning. We want to start with the assumption that we're all compassionate, loving, and generous at our core. That there's no ill intent here, even though that's what used to be the way that people would respond to bad behavior. Oh, they're lazy, or they're manipulating, or they're just trying to use us. We set those assumptions aside and assume that there's good intent here with all of us. And that helps us to notice the behavior. So it doesn't excuse bad behavior or give an anything goes permission approach, but it puts us in that curious emotion where we want to understand why we're behaving the way we're behaving and how do we create change, because we know that's tough. We know that there are many New Year's Eve resolutions set to exercise, eat better, whatever it is, meditate more, and they're lost by the end of the first month. My daughter worked at a grocery store and the bakery, and they always had their hours cut back in January because that was the case, but then they put them right back on for February and Valentine's Day. Our resolutions just don't last that long. So how do we create the change that we know is necessary for them to be able to run their lives on their own? So this approach, this relationship and connection approach, distinguishes the person from the action. It suggests that although it's easy to default or to good or bad judgment, because that's what we've been facing our whole life, that we want to notice that that's just our default brain. We all have a phone, and it all came programmed with certain software, and yet we have customized our phone over many years, adding apps and shortcuts that help it work harder for us. That's what we have to do to our brains as well, to our mindset, so that what's programmed by default is not where we always act. We act with intention. Our brains are wired to notice what's negative. So we stay safe, we guard our resources, and we don't miss out on any opportunities. And we are connected to our tribe so that we are, we have the resources of our community. What we want to do is intentionally correct that life GPS that says, hey, you just need to protect yourself, and move it instead to a connection destination. We want to rewire those default thought patterns so that we do exactly the opposite of what our brain wants to do. We take risks, we try things. Maybe that's at the root cause of why we're escaping so much and numbing so much. We take lots of action to discover what works. We don't guard our resources and make sure we're perfectly perfect the first time out of the gate. We're willing to make mistakes. And we delay that immediate gratification that comes from those that brain just seeking whatever feels good, to instead of that, we're going to delay what feels good in the short run to what really is satisfying in the long run. It's not very likely that we were parented this way. In fact, we can hear our brain offer a bunch of thoughts about how that we're just going to spoil them. They're going to be ruined. They're never going to make it on their own if they don't learn how to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and have a stiff upper lip. Okay, noted. Good to know, because there's some wisdom in all of that. But I'm not sure that's how we want to govern our actions. I know that I want to do better. I want to break the cycle of the behaviorist approach, which was punishment, which sends me into defense mode, and protect less so that I connect more with my family. I want us to be connected until the end of my runway. I'm borrowing some wisdom from Dr. Becky Kennedy, who wrote the book Good Inside. She suggests that we start with the most generous interpretation of whatever behavior we're seeing. When we're seeing those meltdowns or shutdowns, we are a good person having a hard time. It's not just their meltdowns or shutdowns. We also think we can't handle it anymore. We're at the end of our rope. We just can't do this. It's too scary. And or we say, hey, I've done what I can. They're on their own now. That's the shutdown, where we distance and we do not connect anymore with our graduates because we are telling ourselves that there's nothing more that we can do. I offer that as long as we're alive, we can nurture the hope that we will improve the way things are. We can believe that it's possible to make our vision of what we want our family to look like and how prepared we want our graduates to be for the time after something happens to us, that we can do this. We can make things better, little by little, step by step. So inside the Art of Adulting, we increase independence with our autistic graduates together. We're on the same page. We're not sending them off someplace to get fixed. We're together discovering what we need to do to better understand what's going on, connect with each other and our mind and our body, and practice helping both of us get what we want from our life. Those are the 3 steps that we circle through over and over again, no matter what challenge we face. We retrain that inner voice, that voice inside of our head, to find our goodness and outsmart the challenge together. We are curious about what's going on and what are we willing to try next. What's the next experiment we're going to do to see if we can figure this out together? Please join us in the Art of Adulting now that you know the first step, which is the most generous interpretation. Let's take the rest of them together. Bye for now.